Welcome to the HRBC show called Let's Talk. So today we have the Honorable Yolanda Edmonds. Ah. She is running for Portsmouth City Council. And today we're going to find out, does she have what it takes to get your vote? She already got ours. So let's see if she can get yours too. So welcome.
Thank you, Nina. And I will put it out there. Happy birthday for everyone to you. Happy birthday, Nina. So we celebrate you today too. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm 26 again.
Yes, 26 forever.
Awesome. So would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. For those that don't know, I'm Yolanda Edmonds Thomas. I'm a Portsmouth native, so hometown girl. Grew up, spent the first half of my life in downtown Portsmouth, and then second half of my childhood, I grew up in Cavalier Manor. So have different views of all areas of Portsmouth and neighborhoods. The history of Portsmouth, since my entire family is from here, started from my grandparents, my parents, and now me having the pleasure to raise my family in Portsmouth. I graduated from the greatest high school there is in Portsmouth. They're all good, but I see Norcom High School. Go Greyhounds. Our homecoming is this weekend. And y'all know how we do at Norcom State. And I went on to get my Bachelor of Science degree in Chemical Engineering from University of Virginia. And after that, I lived in the DMV in Alexandria, Virginia for several years for my first job as a risk management and working in risk management consulting for chemical plants and as well as the government clients like DOD, Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, as well as working in nuclear technology with the Department of Engineering. I met my best friend in Portsmouth that became my husband and now 16 years. His name is Maceo Thomas. And we then also moved to Pennsylvania for his job, had our first child. And that's when we said, hey, we want to be back in Portsmouth because we have family here. We wanted to raise our child here, our first child. We now have two boys together. And it was important for us to build them up and raise them up in the community that poured into us. And so that's a little bit about my why and my love and my drive for Portsmouth, because Portsmouth has really made me who I am. The people, the teachers, the neighbors, and the other grandmas outside of my own family that really raised me, my husband, and now our children. Portsmouth is really a community that's near and dear to me. And that's why it's so important for me to be, whether I was in office or not office, always involved. My dad has always been involved in the community. My mom, she's a pastor, associate pastor at our home church, Emmanuel AME. My uncle served on city council, Bishop Curtis E. Edmonds. And he's a former pastor, still bishop of St. Mark Missionary Baptist Church, which is community led as well. So it's just ingrained in me to serve the community. And serve the community. You don't just take from your community, you always give to your community as well. So that's a little bit about me personally, and who I am and what kind of drives me.
Awesome. Okay, so I have a few questions for you. Are you ready?
I am ready, Nina.
All right. Here we go. So your site says create safe and clean neighborhoods. What is your plan to accomplish this?
Okay, great question, because I thought long and hard about this. And so on my website, yolandaethomas.com, under that, I have a 5-point plan, right? And about how we will go about creating clean and safe neighborhoods. And the number one thing I thought about is, we know, let me step back a little bit and tell you how my mind works here. With risk management, in my background in risk management, I have worked in my past life of helping the Navy, the Coast Guard, understand how to utilize their resources. And while they have big budgets, they still have big needs. So my background is helping organizations, governments, banks, Fortune 500 companies say, for every dollar you spend, how do you get the most bang for your buck? And that was my approach to when I say, how do we create clean and safe neighborhoods here in Portsmouth when we know we have limited resources? We know we have staffing shortages in our police and first responders unit, our firefighters. So how do we make the best use of the what we have now while building for the future? So number one, to do that, I said, let's do this from a number standpoint. When we talk about crime in Portsmouth, yes, there's crime, pockets of crime everywhere, but you also have areas that we know that I'm sure our police chief tracks, that our first responders track, that are higher crime, higher risk areas. So my thought was opening community precincts or identifying those areas to have community precincts and social service outreach centers to address the social needs, because crime is not just a reactive. You also have to pour into the social needs. So address the social needs and the addressing the actual criminal needs that's happening in those communities. And so while we might not be able to spread resources throughout the city at one time, we can focus on those high crime, high pockets areas, high crime, high risk areas, to really kind of get our numbers down so that we can see actual metrics and actual reduction in those areas. And as those areas get cleaned up, you spread and move across the other areas that need that attention while you're at the same time building up your police force. So that's my first point of that 5-point plan. Secondly, it's about modernizing, and this might not sound like it's going to actually reduce crime, but this is what part of my vision for it is: modernizing our current recreation centers and also building new centers, such as an aquatic center in our city. And what that does for me is that I grew up part of my life in downtown Portsmouth, and in Brighton. My mom is from Brighton, and when you look at areas that have not been invested in, those areas look blighted. They start not to have they have overgrown vegetation. They don't have enough streetlights. Those are areas where crime usually happens a lot. So when you modernize and invest in recreation centers, community centers, you actually start bringing the community together. You actually start cleaning up the community. You actually start having outlets for the youth in that community to go to outside of school. Because while we have the J. Parker Recreation Center, which they do a lot of programming there. They do a lot at that center, but they need more. And so it's about pouring in the dollars into these neighborhoods, Nina, that have been long neglected. So Nina, are you from Portsmouth, Nina?
So I'm not from Portsmouth. I'm from Norfolk, across the water, but I've been here since 2006.
Okay, so I asked that because part of what, knowing the history of Portsmouth, and when I talk about this point too, I'm gonna stay on it a little longer because people don't realize, like, our neighborhoods didn't get like this overnight. It was a long-term decisions that led to certain neighborhoods not being invested in. So for example, my mom was one of the first students to integrate Harry Hunt, which was located in Prentice Park. Prentice Park used to be completely, it was segregated. Portsmouth has segregated communities. So unfortunately, with some of those communities, once integration happened, we didn't have the permanent investment that we need. And that's not to blame anyone. It's just to say, let's correct this. Let's right this ship so that if we're going to talk about reducing crime, you got to pour money into those communities. You got to lift those communities up. And that includes investing in the infrastructure in those neighborhoods and their recreation and community centers and making it better. Point 3, beautifying. It's kind of going to all go together. Beautifying our neighborhoods to reduce, like I talked about earlier, those low visibility zones. You've done we have those reclaiming our community walks. The police chief, he does a great job getting out there with the, in the community, with community policing. We do a lot of walks just throughout communities. And what I do like that we need to do more of is having a way for citizens to report abandoned houses or, overgrown vegetation. Again, that's how you talk about making it harder to hide the crime, making it harder to do crime by investing and beautifying those neighborhoods. Lastly, that it goes into also, sorry, not lastly, but 4, instilling that sense of pride. So just, again, more community outreach, more community activities, continuing those rock the block walks, continuing those preventive measures where people see not only your first responders and your police, your elected officials having more activities, because that continues to instill pride and visibility that the city is invested in your neighborhoods, right? And lastly, I think I mentioned at the beginning, we are short on our police force and our first responders, and there's many reasons for that. So I support um, our police and our first responders. I support, making sure we have a collective bargaining framework so that we can bring our first responders, our firefighters, our police to the right pay step. And so making it better so that we can have the right number of officers that we need to support actually an effective overall reduction in crime. And so that's how I see creating safe and clean communities out of that 5-point plan.
Awesome. Okay. Well, at least you got a plan. You don't know how many times I talk to people and they do not have a plan.
I told you I'm an engineer. I'm very analytical thought process. That doesn't mean that that's the plan, but
Yeah.
that's kind of my thought process for where we can start and looking at things like that.
Yeah. I mean, plans are, can be adjusted. So, but at least you have a starting point in your mind. And I thank you for that. All right, my next question. What are your thoughts about preventing tow trucks from towing our citizens' cars for not having updated registrations in our city?
Okay, so that's a great question. So while I've been talking to voters, there's a lot of reasons that, voters sometimes run into those situations where they are not able to complete their registration. Tolls, property taxes, there's a lot of barriers that might prevent that. So for me, it's about addressing those barriers. And I think that we can force, how we've done toll legislation to help people in need that kind of help so that you're not holding their registration back because of unpaid tolls. You need the same thing for the other areas. So, example, one of the voters I spoke to, they talked about how they inherited a vehicle, after from their parent, after the passing of a parent from the state, and they don't make the income to cover the taxes for that property. But there's no relief for people below a certain salary for that. You get relief if you are like, a certain, like if you have military disability, you get relief on property taxes that won't prevent you. But if it's not military related, there's really, from my knowledge, no relief. Is from what one of the voters was saying. So I think we can look into, let's not we already are dealing with, poverty and crisis in Portsmouth. Let's not make things harder for people. We do need people to have their cars registered, right? But let's find out how we can remove the barriers that are preventing that. Put them on a plan, a payment plan to help them, or put them on, like I said, if there's a extenuating circumstance related to below a certain level of income, that they get some type of relief. And I think that doesn't necessarily happen at the city level, but we can definitely, I think, push for that type of relief at the state level that then trickles down to the city level. So I think there's some work there to be done in identifying like, again, back to metrics. When we look at the causes of what's causing people not to pay their registration, is it forgetfulness? Is it a loss of a bill? Or is it actual and extenuating financial circumstances? Let's look at plans to handle whatever the circumstances are that are popping up continuously, causing that issue. That was an interesting question, Nina.
Okay. Here's my next question. This is personal.
Okay.
What are your thoughts about suggesting to our state legislators, while they're dealing with the whole toll problem, stopping them from preventing our citizens from renewing their registration because of tolls? So my personal thing is, my daughter, she has a, transponder on the car.
Mm-hmm.
But I got billed for by plate. So I'm trying to dispute, look, we got this transponder. Why are you billing me by plate?
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna tell me pay it anyway. So I have a problem with
And you're gonna
that.
keep getting late fees and whatever else they charge. It's a big problem. First of all, I support one thing I do know is that I support whatever we can do to provide relief to our citizens because I personally also know the headache of that. And you're just trying to get your registration done. And sometimes you're like, you know what, let me go ahead and pay 2 years in advance because I don't have time to keep messing with these people going back and forth. So I get that completely. Yes, I know there was some relief provided just for overall, like if you have told debt, but it shouldn't, we have to stop making things hard for the citizens, right? So if there is a dispute happening, don't hold up the registration. Let the person register and then handle dispute later. That's my belief. Like I know they're trying to hold your, say, oh, we're going to get our money from you. That's so we're going to hold up something that you
Yeah.
need to legally drive in this state. But it's hurting our citizens. And we keep going, like for the case of your daughter, our young people, they're going to keep going. They're going to ignore it. They're going to just, they're going to do what they got to do to drive and they're going to keep ignoring it. And I hate that. Like, so I'm all for not creating barriers. Like, I feel like that's the thing. And the thing that when we talk about policies and talk about legislation, yes, you have to have laws in place because you want to track registration, but you cannot make it so that you're basically setting up people for failure. And I tell my kids, my son, I have kids, my older son, that all the time. I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm also going to help set you up for success. And so when we look at policies and laws in place and rules in place, make sure you're setting your citizens up for success and not trying to hinder them. Because if we know anything about Portsmouth, I'm going to keep talking about poverty because that's a big issue for me in Portsmouth. It is so hard to lift yourself out of poverty. So when you keep creating barriers for people that are trying to, one mistake that you think is like one late fee, one toll fee, one toll bill that you think they should just pay, that sets people back months. That can send them, people that are living paycheck to paycheck or just trying to make it, that can send them back months. That could like spiral their situation out of control. So for me, I definitely think that city council, when they put together their legislative package, when they put together their legislative issues to lobby for as a city collectively, which I hope we are doing as a city. I think we need to do more of it, especially given that we have the two top state officials in Portsmouth um, that can hear our needs directly. I think that that's something we should push for, to make rules, to make policies that benefit and don't act as a barrier to people that are just trying to do the right thing. So that's how I definitely think we need to do something about that.
Yeah, them toes, I tell you.
The tolls were awful. Look, I they were awful. They've economically hurt Portsmouth, right? And we are doing a great, I think, trying to do what we can to overcome that economic hurdle. My husband does not work in Portsmouth. He has to go through the tolls every single day. And just what I know our toll bill is every single day, back and forth through the toll, it's a hindrance. It's not fun. And when you get those, like I said, when you get those, bills because you shouldn't be getting pay by plate. Then they add on the late fees. Like, I just know that I can't imagine what a, a I'm gonna just say an example, a single mom that's doing the best she can, that gets that and now has this additional, I can't register my car. Now I can't really lawfully drive to work to get to the job that's paying the bills. Like, that stuff impacts people.
And then
So,
you're gonna get told if you have
and
food
then you're
line.
gonna get told. And then, like, you see how I'm saying, like, why I say when I talk about poverty, why it's near and dear to me that we don't put additional barriers for people that are trying to do the right thing, that are trying to make a living, because you're just going to continue to cycle and not give people the lift that they need to be successful, to lift themselves to the next level. So that's part of, like, my whole outlook of things in office, my love for public education, my love for social service outreach, because it's about lifting our community up and lifting people up that are trying to do better. And I know that the majority of people in Portsmouth, they want to do better. They want their community better. They're just trying to make it. So let's not make it hard for people. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Mhm.
What do you see as your role on council if elected?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I've served on the school board. So, very similar to council, like the role of the school board, you enact policies to make the school better, but you also can, do your, special, agenda with the help of the board that you work on. So, city council is very similar, enacting policies to make the city better, to create economic opportunities for the city, educational opportunities for the city. Overall reducing crime for the city, enacting policies to make the city better. So that's where I see the number one role. You also, oversee the city, not oversee, the city manager works, you fire the city manager. We don't need to be firing no more city managers. We need stability. But making sure that you're also in your role as city council accountable and available for the people. I think that's where I see maybe not the difference for everyone, but where I see my own role. It's not just about making policies for the city, it's also being available and accountable to the people that you serve, to the people that put you in office. So showing up for people, showing up, just being available, being out there, not just showing up for meetings, being out in the public, being out with the people, and really always making sure you are listening and have an ear for what the people want and what they're asking for, and their needs. So that's where I see the role of a city council member.
Okay, awesome. All
Mhm.
right. So people are concerned about all the shootings going on in our city. Yes, we know council is not the police department, but what policies do you think could help with this problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, it's about how do we address it for council is that we simply put the resources to impact and reduce crime. I talked about the Clean and Safe Community 5-point plan, but other than that, it's also investing in public education because crime really is an issue of poverty. Again, you're going to hear me say that a lot. Um, so when you invest in public education, that is one of the main ways to lift people up out of poverty to then reduce crime. So what city council can do is continue investing in public education. Make sure that when we say we believe in workforce development for our adults in the city and growing our city to make sure corporations and businesses come here, and that we also have people, our citizens that are trained to take on those jobs. So providing those educational opportunities to our citizens, also to our youth. So, Nina, we, while on the school board, we broke ground this summer on our Career Technical Education Center. We need to continue to pour into that center. We broke ground. It's not open yet. I hope that it's going to be open for the next school year because we're getting the design phase and getting the contractors and so forth to start to build out. But that school offers brick masonry, plumbing, welding, electrical, and we're also going to offer some cybersecurity programming as well eventually. So investing in education that provides opportunities so that our youth don't turn to crime is one of the most important things council can do. So secondly, I think there's other ways that we, just again, go back to identifying areas, supporting the police in their plan, to what to address their needs of what they need to respond to crime as well. But for me, the number one thing to reduce the shootings that people are sick of is to lift people up out of poverty and provide opportunities for our students and our youth as well, so that they do not turn to a life of crime.
Okay. All right. So citizens are also concerned about the amount of money going out to all the nonprofits and not seeing what these organizations do to benefit Portsmouth. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are whatever we do in terms of providing money to nonprofits, again, back to numbers, it has to be evidence-based and it has to have measured results. So when we are going to give money to nonprofits, it should not be a blank check. It should be with the actual plan in place that for every nonprofit, you know what results you're expecting from them. And then you have a way to measure against that if they did or did not meet those goals. So for me, I hope that in the future, for me as a city council member, what I expect is that in the future, we always make sure that, there's evidence-based results and that we're also setting some metrics and goals for those programs before we provide the money out so that I don't know if they're doing that now. I can say that I know some of the nonprofits are doing some great work in Portsmouth already. And so if we continue to, like I said, work with programs and nonprofits that have those results, but also making sure that we are moving in a step in a planned action and saying, okay, we're reducing our overall, crime by this much for every dollar spent. It's all about accountability for every dollar because Portsmouth, we work hard for our money. And so we want the results. It's the same thing. It's the same accountability and transparency I've heard that people, want from the school board. It's the same accountability I expect as a city council member. So I'm all for that. I'm all for having nonprofits that are boots on the ground, but also making sure that we know what results we're going to get from them and having a way to measure those results to be accountable to the people.
Okay. All right. So now, this is the important question.
Okay.
If elected, what are the top 3 things that you hope to accomplish while you are in office?
Okay, great question. So, top 3 things, really simple. I want to continue my investment in public education because, again, investing in public education is one of our main ways that we address crime and also lift our community up. So continuing to make sure that our schools have the funds and resources that they need. We have aging school buildings. We did not get to this place overnight in our schools. So we need council members, and I want to be that council member that supports the schools and supports the education and future of our children. I have 2 sons myself in Portsmouth Public Schools, and to me, that's important. It's what made me successful, made my husband successful, and that we need to pour into our schools. One, so having a new K-8 school eventually, replacing and building up some of our capital improvement projects. We have schools that really have a lot of needs for construction and updates. And also making sure that we continue the investment in our career technical education school so that our students, if they choose not to go to college, they have a career path, they have a plan, they have a way to get a great salary, a good salary job to support themselves and to prevent them from going to a life of crime or other bad decisions. Number 2, I want to make sure that we provide economic growth opportunities in our city. So while we need to develop our downtown waterfront, we also have to invest in our neglected neighborhoods. We cannot invest in one area and then forget our neighborhoods that have long not had that investment. So making sure that we make the investment for our recreation centers, making sure that we clean up our neighborhoods that have not been dealt with, making sure we invest in the infrastructure, new sidewalks, cleaning up the vegetation, additional lighting, and providing that input into our neighborhoods. And lastly, like I said, economic growth, public education, and clean neighborhoods. Those are really the top. Making sure our police have what they need. Those are really my goals. And then I'll add one more. You asked for 3, Nina. But for me, it's also about, how can I put this? It's also about continuity. Because one of the things that I think has plagued our city is that we've had a rotation of people, city managers, And for me, that's kind of hurt our city in a way that we have not been able to make long-term strategic project progress. So when I for me, it's about having us really utilize our comprehensive plan and seeing the progress. Because I think with the change in city manager, the change in certain leadership, we haven't seen that long-term strategic plan, which I've seen on the school side. And I think it's about having continuity and just studying our overall kind of movement in the city so that we do see some progress immediate. And for me, I know I can do this. I know I can get this done because I did it on the school board. Everything I said I was going to do for the schools, I did. I said I was going to bring dual language immersion to our schools. We have that now. Our kindergarten students are becoming bilingual, biliterate. I said I was going to expand our career technical education program for more career opportunities for our students. Check. I did that with the help of the board. We now have our, CTE center that I was speaking about. I said I was going to provide, ways to make sure that we retain our teachers and also hire teachers. We still have a ways to go, but we're on the right path. We've provided annual raises to our teachers, and we completed a compensation pay study to make sure that we know the number that we're to request to bring our teachers to the right pay step grade so that they're not leaving other cities. We have those same issues in our city with our firefighters, with our first responders. So I know what our needs are in a city, and I know that I'm a person that can offer continuity and a person that can do what they say they're going to do because I've already done it on the school board.
Okay, I hear you. All right now. Okay. So that concludes all the questions that I have. Do you have anything else you would like to tell the people?
I'll just end it with this, that I do not take lightly the support. One, I don't take lightly being an elected leader. I take my responsibility to be an effective and responsible elected leader, because I serve the people. And so I don't take that lightly at all. And so I first want to say thank you, Nina, HRBC, for the opportunity to speak, because, this election is serious. We are at the cusp, I believe, in Portsmouth, of a great change and great progress. And it's important to have the right people in office that aren't just there to serve themselves, that we have people in office that do what they say they're going to do. And for me, as a mom, 2 kids in our public school, a product of Portsmouth Public Schools, it's important that we have people in office that support the schools and public education. It's important that we have people in office that understand the needs of every neighborhood in Portsmouth, not just some, but every area in Portsmouth needs that investment. And it's also important to have people in office that understand how to work with others. And like I said, I've been on the school board. I'm only one vote. Nothing that I said I've done happens with just me. It happens with working across with others. Whether y'all have disagreements or not, it's about upholding what's most important. It's the people, it's the youth, it's the families, it's the businesses. It's those people that we are elected to serve that we have to keep in the forefront. And the reputation of Portsmouth is near and dear to me. This is home. I don't like my home to be talked about. I don't like my home to be seen in a bad light. And so I would never do that. And I hope that the people that are listening to me, that you will vote for me, understand that I work for you. I will continue to work for you, and your kids, your families, your businesses that you have in Portsmouth, and the future of Portsmouth. So that's how I ended, Nina.
Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you again for sharing your platform with us. And here's to getting elected, because we're gonna
Thank
claim it.
you.
You're
Yes,
gonna be
yes. Yes.
okay.
If I would have known it was your birthday, I would have had a birthday candle for you to virtually blow out. So thank
Yes,
you. I appreciate that.
no worries. So, before we close, I'll have to say that my lipstick that I'm wearing can be found at hysteriacollections.com. And although it's my birthday and this dress is cute, I also like to show off I'm a breast cancer, a
Oh,
proud breast cancer
awesome.
survivor. And here's my little badge of honor right
Oh,
here.
oh, wow. That's
Please
beautiful.
make sure you go and get your boobies checked
Yes.
because early detection is the key to success.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
thank everyone. I thank you all for watching us, and that's all we have for today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nina. You have a good night.
You too.